Hello and welcome back to Silent Husband Club. We truly appreciate your patience during our recent absence. Life can get in the way, but we're back, and we'll do our best to bring you powerful new stories every single day. You can spend years building a life with someone, rituals, memories, quiet mornings, and still never see the betrayal coming. Sometimes the person sleeping next to you is already gone, and all you're left with is silence and suspicion. If this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It really helps grow our channel and brings these stories to more people like you. It crept in so quietly, I didn't even hear it. Not at first. Evelyn and I had been married for 14 years. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our quiet evenings by the fire and early mornings with coffee on the porch. A small home just outside Ashgrove, Vermont, with creaky floors and warm light. We had built a life that, from the outside, looked enviable. And maybe for a while, it even was. But something began to shift. And I still don't know when, exactly. She used to talk to me about everything: her work, her coworkers, what she overheard in the grocery store line, even her dreams. She was the kind of woman who filled silence like sunlight fills a room. But lately, silence was all I got. I'd ask her how her day was, and she'd just smile, tired, mechanical, and say, "Fine." No stories. No laughter. Just one-word answers and eyes that looked through me instead of at me. I wanted to believe it was nothing. Seasonal blues. Stress at work. I tried telling myself it would pass. But deep down, I already knew. Something was unraveling. Then came the phone. At first, it was small things: Evelyn spending more time scrolling, laughing at messages she didn't share, setting her phone face down when I was near. I made a half-hearted joke one night, trying to keep it light. Got a secret admirer I should know about? She laughed, but it was off. Tight. Forced. No, just coworkers flooding the group chat again, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. One name had come up more than once: Trevor. She mentioned him a while back, when he'd just joined her department. Said he was funny, a good addition to the team. He even brings homemade brownies, she had told me once, smiling. He's a hit with everyone. Back then, I didn't think anything of it. But now, with every glance at her phone, with every message she chose not to share, I started to wonder. Was Trevor the one texting her? Was it even him at all? I started lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece things together that didn't want to be connected. And one night, as she turned in early again, I sat alone in the dim light of our living room, heart pounding, mind racing. Something inside me cracked. I waited until I was sure she was asleep. Her phone was on the nightstand, just inches away. My hand trembled as I reached for it. I didn't want to do it, I swear, I didn't. But I needed to know. I couldn't live in the dark anymore. I unlocked the screen, my heart slamming against my ribs. It felt like stepping off a cliff. For the first few moments, everything looked ordinary. Messages from her sister, coworkers, friends. Group chats. Birthday plans. Emails. Nothing sinister. And then I saw it. Trevor. I opened the thread. The words weren't explicit. Nothing sexual. But there was tone. Familiarity. "Thanks for the amazing evening. I haven't laughed like that in forever," Trevor wrote. "Yeah, it was really nice. We should do that again soon," Evelyn had replied. My blood turned cold. What evening? She told me she was out with the girls that night. That she needed some time with the ladies. Why lie? Why lie unless there was something to hide? I sat frozen, phone still in hand, as the truth began clawing its way out of the shadows. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to explain it away. But the seed of doubt had already taken root. That night, I didn't go back to bed. I sat in the dark, watching the fire die out, trying to hold my thoughts together like splinters in my fist. And for the first time in 14 years, I realized I didn't know the woman lying in the next room. Not anymore. The days that followed were suffocating. Every moment Evelyn and I spent under the same roof felt like a slow, unbearable performance. She moved around the house like everything was normal, smiling, asking about my day, telling me she was tired, or that she had another late meeting at work. But now I was watching her. Every word, every gesture, every breath. And the more I watched, the more I saw what I hadn't before. She wouldn't look me in the eye when I asked her about her day. Her smile lingered a second too long. When her phone buzzed, she reached for it with urgency, and if I was nearby, she tilted the screen away always. Once, I walked into the kitchen unexpectedly and caught her flinching, like she'd been startled. She was just reading a text, or so she said. But the way she clicked the screen off, shoved the phone aside, and gave me that overly sweet smile, I could feel the lie in her voice. I was unraveling. Torn between confrontation and restraint. Between storming in with accusations and pretending I still believed her. But I couldn't pretend anymore. One night, Evelyn said she had a meeting at the office and wouldn't be home until late. The way she said it, calm, rehearsed, confident, made something inside me snap. That look in her eyes. I'd seen it before. Just once. When she lied about that night with Trevor. So I followed her. I told myself I was pathetic, even as I grabbed my coat and keys. I felt like a child playing spy. But I had to know. The truth was a bitter medicine, but the doubt, it was poison. I waited 5 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway, then eased my car onto the road, headlights off until I was far enough behind. My hands were slick on the wheel, my stomach clenched into a knot that refused to loosen. The thought of her with him, it hadn't been real until now. Not really. Not until this. She drove for 20 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of a small restaurant, the restaurant. The one we used to go to before life started to wear us down. Before we stopped laughing. Before the silence. I parked on the far end of the lot, just out of view, and watched. She stepped out of the car, wearing a black dress I hadn't seen in months. Simple, elegant, too much for an office meeting. She looked around, then walked toward the entrance. A few seconds later, he appeared, Trevor. I recognized him instantly, even though we'd never met. Tall, athletic build, the kind of smug, polished confidence that makes your fists itch. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, casual but deliberate. He smiled as he approached her, and she laughed. And then they embraced. Not a polite hug. Not a coworker's pat on the back. No, this was something else. Something warm. Intimate. I didn't move. I couldn't. I watched them walk inside together, talking like old lovers slipping back into a familiar rhythm. That was the moment it became real. Not a theory. Not a fear. Real. I didn't confront them. I wanted to. God, I wanted to march into that restaurant and tear the lie apart with my bare hands. But I didn't. I drove home, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. I needed more. If I exploded now, all she had to do was deny. Say I was paranoid. Misinterpreting. Making things up. So I made a decision. The next day, I called Ray. We hadn't spoken in years. He used to be a cop before going private. Quiet guy. Sharp as hell. He owed me a favor from way back when I helped him get out of a tough legal situation. I told him I needed answers. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Send me a photo and I'll handle it." For the next few days, I lived like a ghost in my own home. Evelyn didn't suspect a thing. She kissed my cheek before leaving, called me sweet names, acted as if everything was normal. And maybe to her, it was. Maybe she'd gotten used to it. The lying. The pretending. The double life. But I couldn't unsee it anymore. Every time I looked at her, I saw that moment in the restaurant, her smile, his hand on her back, the way she leaned in when she laughed. That wasn't an affair starting. That was an affair thriving. Ray didn't take long. 2 days later, he texted me, "We need to meet. I've got what you asked for." We met in his truck, parked at the edge of a gas station just off the highway. No small talk. He opened a manila envelope and handed me a stack of photographs. And there she was. Evelyn. With Trevor. Arm in arm. Walking into a motel just outside town. Smiling. No hesitation. No guilt. Just her and him, as if the world they were destroying didn't exist. I stared at the photos, my fingers going numb. This wasn't suspicion. This wasn't doubt. This was proof. Cold, undeniable proof. Everything we built, 14 years of life, memories, anniversaries, fights, vacations, laughter, love, it all cracked in that moment. Not because of the sex. Not even because of Trevor. But because of the choice. She made a decision. Not once. Not by accident. Again and again. And I let her. I drove home slowly, the photos burning a hole in the passenger seat. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the silence, with nothing left to say. But I knew what I had to do. She needed to tell me. I needed to look her in the eye and hear the lie break in her throat. She owed me that. And maybe, just maybe, I needed to see if there was anything left worth saving. The house was still when I returned. Dark, quiet, the kind of silence that seeps into your bones. I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood in the hallway, holding those photographs like they were some kind of sacred, cursed relic. Proof that the version of Evelyn I thought I knew didn't exist anymore, maybe hadn't for a long time. And yet, a part of me still hoped she would walk through that door, look me in the eye, and tell me the truth without me having to drag it out of her. That maybe, just maybe, there was still a trace of the woman I had fallen in love with buried beneath the lies. That Friday night, Evelyn came home later than usual. She walked in like nothing was wrong, set her bag down, and greeted me with that same tired smile. "You're still up?" she asked, feigning surprise, though her eyes flicked to the living room, sensing something different. I nodded and gestured toward the couch. "We need to talk," I said. Calm. Controlled. Not angry yet. Just done pretending. She hesitated. Just for a second. But in that second, I saw everything. The panic. The guilt. The moment she realized the facade was crumbling. She sat. I sat. And then I told her everything. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the pictures at her or scream accusations. I simply laid it all out at the distance, the silences, the night I followed her, the photos Ray had given me. I spoke like a man who had nothing left to lose, because that's what I had become. At first, she denied it. Of course she did. Her voice trembled, her eyes wide with faux confusion. Trevor? He's just a friend. That night at the restaurant was a coincidence. We ran into each other. But I didn't flinch. I slid the photos across the table and watched her world collapse. Her hands trembled as she picked them up. Her face drained of color. For a moment, she just stared. Then the tears came, heavy, desperate, the kind that might have once broken me. Michael. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I didn't mean. No, I interrupted quietly. You did mean to. You meant it every time you met him. Every lie you told. Every late night you slipped out of here like I wouldn't notice. You meant it, Evelyn. She cried harder then, covered her face with her hands and broke down in front of me like I'd never seen before. But it was too late for that to move me. Too late for tears to mean anything. I watched her cry, but all I felt was a dull, hollow ache. Not rage. Not betrayal. Just the quiet death of something I thought would never die. Eventually, she looked up at me, eyes swollen, voice shaking. I want to fix this, Michael. I swear. I made a mistake. I lost myself. But I never stopped loving you. Please, let's go to therapy. Let's try. Don't throw this away. Throw this away? That hit differently. I stared at her, stunned by how easily she reframed it, as if it was now my decision whether our marriage survived or died. As if it hadn't already died in that motel parking lot. But even then, even in that moment, a small voice inside me whispered, maybe she means it. Maybe she's scared. Maybe she really does want to fight for this. I didn't answer right away. I just stood and walked out of the room. I needed air. Space. Sanity. That night, I barely slept. Her words echoed in my skull, let's try. Don't throw this away. I thought about all the years we'd shared. About the morning coffees, the shared holidays, the way her hand used to find mine under the blanket when we watched old movies. I thought about the good, the real, the sacred. And then I thought about the photographs. About Trevor. About the lies. The next morning, she was quiet. No makeup. Red-rimmed eyes. She made coffee and sat across from me at the kitchen table, like we were two strangers forced to share space. I've found a therapist, she said softly. Someone who specializes in couples healing from infidelity. We can go together. Or, if you need time, I understand. I looked at her. At the broken version of the woman I had married. And I didn't know what I felt. Pity? Love? Resentment? All of it. None of it. I need time, I said. But I'll go. Her shoulders sank, and for the first time, I saw something real, regret that didn't feel staged. Maybe that was the cruelest part of all, knowing that the same person who broke you might be the only one who truly wants to put you back together. The days after that were fragile. We barely spoke beyond what was necessary. But something had shifted. The truth was out now, raw and ugly and breathing between us at all times. I still didn't know if our marriage could survive. Hell, I didn't know if I even wanted it to. But I needed to understand. I needed to see her try. Not for her. Not for us. For me. Because if I was going to put my heart back on the table, I needed to believe that it wouldn't be shattered again. The first therapy session felt like walking into a burning house, knowing you might still be able to pull something out of the wreckage, or maybe just watch it all collapse in front of you. We barely spoke on the drive there. Evelyn sat beside me, her hands folded tightly in her lap, knuckles white. I could feel the weight of her guilt radiating off her, like a storm barely contained. And I wasn't even sure what I was feeling anymore. Anger, hurt, confusion, exhaustion. Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. But I showed up. I was still there. That had to count for something. The therapist's name was Dr. Weber. Calm voice. Kind eyes. The kind of presence that didn't demand trust but quietly invited it. She welcomed us in, offered water, and let us sit for a moment before gently asking, "What brings you both here today?" Evelyn answered first. She always had the words, even when they hurt. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice shaking. "I betrayed him. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to fight for us. I want to try." Dr. Weber nodded. Then she turned to me. "Michael, how do you feel about being here?" I looked at Evelyn. Then at the floor. Then back at the therapist. I feel like I'm watching the woman I love slip through my fingers. And I don't know if I'm here because I still love her, or because I can't stand the idea that she stopped loving me first. That silence that followed was the loudest thing in the room. Over the next few sessions, the real work began. Dr. Weber didn't sugarcoat anything. She asked hard questions. Made us confront things we hadn't dared to say out loud. Evelyn spoke of loneliness. Of years feeling unseen, even as she admitted she never said a word about it. Of how Trevor had shown her attention, laughter, comfort in ways that felt easy until it wasn't. I listened. I clenched my fists sometimes. Other times I stared at the wall to keep the anger from boiling over. But I listened. Not because I wanted to excuse her actions, never that, but because I needed to understand what had broken, and when, and why I hadn't noticed. One night after therapy, Evelyn made dinner. It wasn't much, just pasta and garlic bread, but it was something we hadn't done in weeks. She poured wine. Set the table. Tried, in her own way, to recreate the normalcy we had once taken for granted. As we ate, she asked quietly, "Do you remember that trip we took to Maine? The little cabin near the lake?" I did. Vividly. It was the last time I remembered feeling truly happy. Just the two of us. No phones. No distractions. Just wind through the trees and her head resting on my chest at night. "I remember," I said. She smiled faintly. "I miss that. I miss us." I didn't say anything. Because I missed us too. But I didn't know if us was still real, or just a memory I kept replaying because it hurt less than the truth. Dr. Weber once told us, rebuilding trust isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to move forward with the pain and still trying. I wasn't sure if I could do that. But I also wasn't sure I could walk away. Eventually, Evelyn suggested a weekend away. Just the two of us. A cabin in the mountains. To breathe, she said. To see if there's still something worth saving. I agreed. The cabin was quiet, surrounded by trees and heavy August air. We didn't talk much the first day. But the silence wasn't as sharp as it used to be. It felt more like space, uncomfortable, yes, but honest. We went on a hike the next morning. Reached a lookout point where the valley opened up beneath us like a secret. She sat next to me on a flat rock, legs tucked beneath her. After a long silence, she said, "You don't have to forgive me. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I want you to know I haven't spoken to him since that night. I blocked him. Deleted everything. He's gone." I looked at her. Not with anger. Not with affection either. Just searching. Then why do I still feel like he's here between us? I asked. She didn't answer. Just reached for my hand and held it there in the silence, as if trying to show me she was still real. That we were still real. That night, we cooked together. Drank wine. Laughed, even. And for a brief, flickering moment, it almost felt okay. Not healed. Not fixed. But possible. The road back wasn't a straight line. There were still days when I hated her. Nights when I laid awake staring at the ceiling, asking myself why I was still trying. But there were also moments, small, fragile things, that made me believe it wasn't all for nothing. And that maybe, just maybe, there was a version of us on the other side of the storm. Back in Ashgrove, the rhythm of daily life crept back in like fog, slow, quiet, and heavy. Evelyn and I moved around the house like we were still learning how to live in the same space again. Some mornings she would leave handwritten notes on the kitchen counter, small things, like "have a good day" or "dinner's on me tonight." They weren't apologies, but they felt like offerings. Peace tokens. And I accepted them, though my heart remained guarded. We continued therapy. Week after week. Some sessions were painfully quiet. Others cracked us open. We fought, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence. But we kept showing up. And that, somehow, meant something. One evening, she brought up something I didn't expect. "There's a photography workshop next weekend," she said while we were cleaning up after dinner. "It's for couples. Just something light." I thought maybe we could try it. Together. At first, I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt absurd. A couples workshop? After everything? But then again, wasn't this exactly the kind of thing we never did before? The kind of shared experience we kept pushing off, year after year, until there was nothing left between us but routine? So I said yes. The workshop was held in a small community center downtown. Nothing fancy. Just a few folding chairs, a table full of coffee and stale muffins, and 6 other couples who looked just as uncertain as we did. The instructor, a woman named Amelie, was warm, energetic, and totally unfazed by the tension hanging between most of the people in the room. She smiled and said, "This weekend isn't about photography. It's about seeing each other, really seeing again." That first day, we barely spoke. We took turns with the camera, snapping awkward photos of each other in weird lighting. But then, something shifted. During one exercise, Amelie asked us to photograph our partner when they weren't paying attention. Capture something real. I stood across the room, camera in hand, watching Evelyn fix her hair absent-mindedly. She looked tired. Older than I remembered. But there was something soft in her face, something vulnerable. I pressed the shutter. And for the first time in months, I didn't see the woman who had betrayed me. I saw the woman who was trying. Later that day, she showed me a photo she had taken of me mid-laugh, mouth open, head tilted back. I didn't even remember laughing. "This is my favorite," she said quietly. "Because it means you still can." It gutted me. That night, we didn't talk much. We drove home in silence, each lost in thought. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, yes, but not suffocating. The kind of silence that follows a storm, when the wind finally stops howling and all you hear is the wreckage. A few days later, I stumbled upon an old message on Evelyn's phone while we were setting up music on the Bluetooth speaker. It was from Trevor. Dated months back, but unread, unopened, buried under dozens of new threads. My chest clenched. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to go back there. But I had to. It wasn't anything damning, just an old, stupid line, thinking of you today. Hope you're well. That was it. But it was enough to reignite everything I had worked so hard to quiet. My mind spiraled. Did she answer him? Was he still waiting in the shadows? That night, I confronted her. The fight was brutal. I wasn't calm. I wasn't composed. I shouted, accused, demanded. She cried, begged, insisted she hadn't seen the message, hadn't replied, didn't even know it was there. I told you, he's blocked. That must have slipped through somehow. I swear to you, Michael, I haven't spoken to him since. And in my gut, I believed her. But the pain didn't care about logic. It twisted in my chest like a rusty knife. We brought it to therapy the next day. I sat stiffly in the chair, arms crossed, voice low and cold. How am I supposed to move forward if every corner of our past still cuts me? Dr. Weber leaned in and said, "You're not here to forget what happened. You're here to decide what kind of man you want to be after it." That hit hard. Because for months I had been trapped in one role, the betrayed. The victim. The man with the photos, the pain, the right to rage. But I didn't want to live there forever. I didn't want that to define me. We kept going. Day after day. Small steps. Shared meals. Laughter that didn't feel forced. And slowly, I found moments where I wasn't angry anymore. Not because I forgot. Not because I forgave. But because the hurt didn't own me like it used to. There's no switch. No moment where the heart just resets. But sometimes, healing isn't a grand gesture, it's a quiet morning where the coffee tastes normal again, and you look across the table and realize, you're still here. We didn't arrive at a finish line. There was no grand, cinematic moment where I took Evelyn's hand and suddenly everything was okay. Healing didn't look like a sunrise or a second honeymoon. It looked like slow mornings. Like cautious conversations over coffee. Like sitting next to each other in the same room without needing to fill the silence with anything other than our presence. And yet, it was progress. Real, hard-earned progress. There were still moments when the weight of everything that had happened returned without warning. A smell, a song, a glance at her phone, anything could trigger the memories. But now, instead of retreating into silence or letting the pain devour me, I spoke. I asked. And she answered. Not defensively. Not with practiced lies. But with a softness that only exists when someone is genuinely trying to be better. One evening, while we were sitting on the back porch, just like we used to before everything fell apart, Evelyn turned to me with a look I hadn't seen in a long time. Not guilt. Not fear. But something closer to hope. I know I'll never fully earn back your trust, she said. But I want you to know / I still wake up every day hoping I can. I want this marriage, Michael. Not out of guilt, but because I still see you. I still love you. I let her words sit there. I didn't rush to respond. I stared out into the quiet yard, at the shadows stretching long across the grass. Then I turned to her and said, I don't know if I can ever forget what happened. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust you again. But I'm not leaving. I'm not giving up. Because when I look at you now, I don't just see what you did. I also see what you're doing to make it right. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't a clean slate. But it was something. We continued therapy, even when the worst of the storm had passed. Because we learned that healing isn't just about repairing what broke, it's about learning how to protect what's left. We started volunteering together at a local animal shelter, something small, something that gave us new ground to stand on. She shared more. I listened more. We laughed again, clumsily at first, then more freely. People think forgiveness is a moment, a single decision. But it's not. It's 1,000 tiny choices. To stay. To talk. To listen. To let go again and again. Some days, I still fail at that. But I keep showing up. And so does she. Not long ago, she printed one of the photos from the workshop, the one of me laughing, and framed it. She placed it on the mantel beside an old photo from our wedding. 2 versions of me, side by side. One full of hope, unaware of the storms ahead. The other, scarred but still standing. Sometimes I catch myself looking at that frame longer than I mean to. And when I do, I remind myself, pain doesn't erase love. But it does force you to choose again and again what love really means. We're not the same couple we once were. And maybe that's okay. Maybe who we're becoming is stronger, more honest, more awake. This isn't a happy ending. But it is a beginning. And sometimes, that's all you need.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, shocked you, or simply made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, your thoughts, your story, your truth. Subscribe for more raw, real, and unforgettable confessions. And if this story made you feel seen, share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. You're not alone here. This channel is a safe space for those who've been betrayed, broken, and rebuilt.